If I ask you to picture Mary Magdalene, what's the first image that pops in your head? For most people, it's a broken, weeping woman, a reformed, controversial figure from the streets who spent her life hiding behind these 12 apostle men. This entire image is a manufactured political hit piece because the oldest records prove that Mary wasn't just a background follower. She was actually the intellectual anchor, the primary visionary. To understand who Mary actually was, we have to understand how the people were named in the ancient Roman world. Women were essentially treated as property, legally and socially. Because of this, women were always identified by the dominant man in their lives. In the gospel, you see this constantly. Mary, the wife of Clopas. Mary, the mother of James. But Mary Magdalene was never tied to a father, a husband, a brother. She is called the Magdalene. If a woman was named after the town, rather than a man, it meant that she possessed independent wealth, status, and her own legal identity. Magdala was a wealthy industrial fish exporting business on the Sea of Galilee. Mary was an independent, high-status woman of means. And the Bible actually admits this, even though it's usually read right over. In Luke chapter 8, verses 1 through 3, the text lists the people traveling with Jesus. It names Mary Magdalene, Joanne, Susanna, and then it states that these women were ministering to them out of their own resources. Let's translate this into plain English. Mary Magdalene and her circle were financially backing the entire ministry. Without her wealth, the male disciples wouldn't have food to eat, wouldn't have a place to sleep. She was the foundational pillar of the movement from day one. But her real leadership didn't come from her wallet. The ultimate test of any leader happens when the world collapses in absolute terror. When Jesus was ambushed, arrested, and sentenced by the cross by the Roman Empire, the male disciples completely shattered. They panicked. Simon Peter, the man that modern churches claim was the rock of the entire faith, literally denied even knowing Jesus 3 times just to save his own skin. The men fled into the dark rooms. They locked the doors in absolute terror. But Mary Magdalene didn't run. While the future bishops of the church were hiding, Mary stood openly at the foot of the cross, directly defying the Roman guards and the temple authorities. She stayed through the agony. She supervised the burial. And she tracked where the body was laid. When the movement hit rock bottom, the leadership wasn't male. It was entirely female. And because of that loyalty, something monumental happened. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John all agreed on one undeniable fact. Mary Magdalene was the first person to witness the resurrection. In ancient times, this earned the official Latin title of Apostola Apostolorum, which means the apostles to the apostles. Jesus chooses a woman, Mary, to go back to the hiding men and instruct them on what to do next. She was the teacher teaching the future leaders. She was the financial anchor, the steadfast witness, and the first authorized apostle. How did she end up being labeled a prostitute? After Jesus departed, a massive ideological civil war broke out over who should run the movement, Mary Magdalene or Simon Peter. These books were deliberately buried by the early Christians to protect them from being burned by the changing political church. And when you open the Gospel of Mary Magdalene,